Okay, Solo, we've changed the battery. Just need to stop for that. Let's continue with this. So now, tell me a little bit about the quality of education at this institution.
Yeah. Best thing ever, man. It's I thrived in SCAD. So remember, I scored a D+ in physics, KCSE. And I figured, since I'm going to SCAD, maybe I'm done with that stuff. I just focus on the artsy side of design. Shock on me, I had to enroll for 3 physics classes.
Ooh.
Some were advanced physics. So there was no escaping that. But I'm not even sure what to describe that as, because the learning environment was night and day. I mean, the building, first of all, was a historic building in downtown Savannah, which had been reclaimed by the school. Understanding the history of the school because of the culture of Thai test from Alliance High School was easy for me to learn about the school. I always like to have a reason for stuff. I don't do stuff just to do. I want to know the why. What does it mean? Why is it named this way? Why did you name your business that way? Why did you pick this color? What does it mean? So, for me, it was very easy to learn about the school.
You had interest already.
Yeah. And, discovering that this was one of the best schools in the world to do an architecture course on made that much more rich of an experience for me. It was not lost on me how expensive the school was. It was very expensive. It was $25,000 a year in tuition fees in 1998.
That's a lot of money.
1999. That was a lot of money. Just for class, you haven't counted food, rent, blah, 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 the room, the dorm, your supplies, your art supplies were crazy expensive. So it was a stretch financially for my parents. And I was very aware of that. In fact, I remember at some point, I did the math on how much it costs per class. Every time I sat in the class, and the classes were 2.5 hours long, that was $120 per class. So I was in 100% because I knew I have 2 younger sisters back home who also need to go through school. And this place is costing my parents a bomb. I cannot goof around. I have to make it count. I have to honor their sacrifice. I have to make maximum use of this opportunity. So I was in it, man. I was excited every morning. I mean, just being in a foreign country was exciting. Studying my lifelong dream was exciting. The learning environment was excellent. The building facilities were amazing. I keep saying it, like Kilimani Junior Academy, classes had carpet. In fact, one of my first classes, English, I remember the professor, a lady.
English was one of your first classes?
Yes, one of your basic classes.
Okay.
You have to take English, comprehension, composition, and whatnot. And I remember the professor walking into class. She introduced herself, and she was giving us the rules of engagement for her class. You can't be, not focusing. You have to keep in step with us as we're reading. Pay attention, ask questions. If you feel like you want to stretch your legs, it's fine. You can even sit on the floor since it's carpet. You don't have to be at your desk. I was like, huh? What? Repeat that again. And then there was a TV in the corner. I remember. I was wondering, okay, I guess she's going to go through some material on TV. Second class, we watched a movie and had to discuss the poetic parts of this movie. It was a blockbuster movie, and that was class. I'm like, I'm getting grades for watching a movie in class.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a very different paradigm from African education, night and day. And I'm not even sure if I would say it's worse or better, but I think the results speak for themselves. It's the reason why the whole world is traveling to the West for tertiary education. It seems to be working. So I think maybe it's time we also reconsider our learning modules. And so that was the change was refreshing for me. It wasn't that hard pressure cooker environment. The professors were highly engaging. Also, the professor-student population was the ratio was very low. I mean, my class had at most 15 kids.
Yo.
Yeah. So you had proper attention. You could get help after the class. Each class was 2.5 hours long. We'd only have two classes in a day. And Fridays were free. Our weekend started on Friday. When you do your assignments and so on and other extracurricular activities. So it was very friendly for me. Coming from a high pressure cooker environment, it was a breeze for me. I was scoring A+, all the way, even advanced physics. I'd ace all the questions to score 100% plus the bonus questions. So I was scoring 140% in some exams, which I was excited to share back home with my folks as getting A+ in advanced physics. So I mean, it was a dream situation for me. I loved my experience at SCAD.
And let me ask, were you so with living in a different country come expenses?
Yeah.
So of course your parents have paid the fees or may have paid the fees.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, accommodation, but you've got to live. You've got to. You're talking about being in class 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
Doing another assignment 5 hours a day. You've got a lot of time. What are you doing with that extra time?
After assignments, you're just hanging out with fellow students in the dorms.
So meals are provided. Everything.
Meals were part of the dorm
package.
Fee. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
So and the meals were. I mean, it's like a 4-star hotel. Meals were. I mean, it was a far cry from Alliance High School days. I can tell you that. I was eating things I'd never had before, which was exciting. It was just very organized. I mean, order, man. It was the environment that I wish students in Africa in general would experience.
It's conducive for thriving.
Absolutely. Yes, competitive, but more emphasis was placed on the individual understanding as opposed to scoring numbers on an exam. And other things came along with that. So interpersonal skills. I ended up becoming the president of the African Student Association.
What? In how long?
After the first year. I was its second president. That seemed to be very important to the school's administration. It scored me points with the school, to the point that when school fees became a challenge later, I was able to obtain loans from the school.
Whoa.
Because my grades were good and I was engaged in other community activities. So I was deemed to be of some value to the school community.
So, okay, what I'm hearing then about you is that you submerged yourself into this school in terms of and in terms of the culture, in terms of how do I even add value with what I have, the African community.
Yeah, African community, the building arts, School of Building Arts community. I loved my experience there. It's all I did. I mean, it was fun. There was no sense of task about it. It was just all. Half the time I couldn't believe that this is part of the learning process. It's like, The Matrix came out, and I think the whole building was sent to the movie theaters to watch The Matrix for class. Because it was an art school.
Yeah.
So issues around animation, computer-aided design were relevant to that movie. It was a cult piece. So, that perspective on learning was so refreshing for me. It was fun. And that stuff sticks with you. And today you can see, I mean, a lot of the kids I went to school with are now at Pixar, Walt Disney. The guys animating all the movies we pay billions of shillings to go watch.
Those are guys you were in school with.
Yeah. Designers, architects, product designers, designing vehicles, yachts.
Oh, in fact, let me ask you. So were part of your lectures professionals within the industry?
Yeah, some were. I remember my CAD professor, computer-aided design for architecture, was, I think he was Filipino, Professor Wino. spelled Huy, first name, second name Ngo. Africans used to say Haingo. Professor Haingo. He used to say it's Wino, Professor Wino. This guy was amazing. He taught us how to do CAD for architecture, designing your buildings on computer. And he would take note of the best students, the students with the highest aptitude for computer-aided design, and he would hire them in his own company as interns.
Yo.
And this guy used to do animations for big developments, for states, for cities. For instance, Savannah was designing an extension to the airport, and he won the tender to animate the fly-throughs and everything for presentation purposes. And I remember him telling us that at the highest level, you could earn somewhere around, I think it was $12,000 per second of animation.
Per second?
Yeah, depending on how complex it was. So if you're doing, movie level animation, it's very expensive and they pay well. And because of the workload, he would always hire students he had trained because they were coachable.
Yep.
And he had a rapport with them. It was great money.
And they understood it from his understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, some of the professors were professionals in the fields that they were teaching.
What about in this first year, what about your engagement with the Kenyan community?
I didn't.
Are you getting the homesick?
Boss, all the time, man. I was thankfully I could call home.
There's no mobile phones at this time.
No, it was you buy those scratch cards that used to have horrible sound quality and echoes and whatnot. But at least I could call home. My cousin was there, which helped. Actually, I had a bunch of cousins in the States, just in other parts of the States, who had preceded me.
Yeah.
Besides the Kenyans in my college, I didn't have very much interaction with the Kenyan community in general.
Okay.
Because it wasn't that big in Savannah. Where you'd find the biggest population was in Atlanta. And those we would interact with, when there was public holidays, and we would all drive up to Atlanta, which was a 3-hour drive from Savannah, for, all sorts of events.
So that's not too bad.
No, it wasn't bad. But I'll be honest, I remember thinking to myself, what a shame it would be to have the opportunity to live in this foreign country and then just surround myself with Kenya. It didn't make sense. I understood immediately that there was value in immersing myself in as many of the other cultures as possible. So while I was happy to interact with Kenyans, I was not gung-ho about looking for Kenyans. In fact, in some cases, I avoided them because I didn't want to feel like I was back in Nairobi. Because you have a bubble around you that prevents you from plugging into the community fully, and therefore you can't benefit from the culture you're in.
But that's so. Let me say it. I understand what you're saying now. But to have understood it then, because you see this thing that I'm asking you, people always gravitate to where they feel
comfort,
familiar and comfort, and
you
know what I mean. So these other races, cultures are foreign. So what made you have that thought process? I actually find that phenomenal. Now I would love to do university again now because I have that understanding. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think maybe it's just one of those things that is a grace of God. Okay, so I'll be more specific. One of the things I could not stand about many of the Kenyans I interacted with during college was the party culture. And this is because at the same time, we interacted a lot with Caribbean students. And funny enough, the Caribbeans and Africans got along like brothers. We have a lot of the same cultural practices. They are Africans through and through.
Yeah.
They eat a lot of the same things. We had the same taste for foods and flavors. They loved to party. Every time Kenyans would have a bash, the largest other group of people was Caribbeans, and it's vice versa. When they had bashes, it was just Africans, Kenyans in particular. But I noted once that my Caribbean friends, I was actually a bit offended about it. They hosted a dance hall night in one of the famous new clubs in Savannah. And in preparation for it, they had hired a DJ who was going to play the proper dancehall music. Like, it was a big thing. They printed flyers, distributed them throughout not just our campus, but even Savannah State University. And they printed T-shirts specifically for this thing. Bahama Lions, I think they call it. And they made a deal with the club owner to split revenues. Yeah, so all beverage sales were the club owners, but all the ticket sales for entry were split. These guys made stupid money that weekend. And I was like, okay, why aren't Africans thinking of doing the same thing? All we do is get together, talk about Kenyan politics, and get into a little Kenyan quibbles instead of advancing ourselves. That was my experience back then. And so I remember making a conscious decision, I guess probably because I was also aware of the expenses involved with my being there. I wanted to advance. I didn't want to just be there like an amoeba floating around, involving myself.
You used the word amoeba.
I was like, come on, man. Like, in fact, I remember asking them, guys, can we do something? Let's do biashara. Let's do something. Let's make money. Guys were not feeling it. And the the straw that broke the camel's back was one time I think I had $20 to my name, and I was wondering how I was gonna make money to cover rent. By this time I had left the dorms. I was sharing a house with two other guys, a Kenyan and a Bahamian guy. And I remember I was agonizing about what I should do to make sure I didn't miss rent and had enough money to buy food. And a bunch of the Kenyan guys were over at the house hanging out, as was normal. We just hang out, watch TV, watch movies, listen to music, talk about home, whatever, have some beers. And I remember guys were now bored of being in the house and they're deciding we're going out. And I was like, I'm not going out. I can't afford it. I was like, sour. And one of the guys asked if he could borrow $10 from me so you could buy beers while they were out. Now, mind you, I'm staying home because I don't think I can afford, which I couldn't afford to go out. But this guy had the audacity to not only go out, never mind he doesn't have money, but to borrow the little I had. And I remember thinking to myself, that is so small-minded. I can't be around that all the time. I need to challenge myself. And so I was deliberate about interacting with as many different people as I could, as opposed to being stuck in this cocoon of Kenyanness, because it can be very retrogressive, I feel. And to be honest, the most successful Kenyans I ever met after that did not live their lives that way. They were fully integrated in their communities, doing big business, changing lives, affecting lives positively, and therefore they could contribute positively to their Kenyan community, whether it's giving them jobs, assisting them bring relatives, host relatives, whatever.
Even sending money back home.
Yeah, sending money back home. I mean, it took me years before I could do that, man. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's a big one. I mean, and I love the fact that you've been open enough to explain that, because it doesn't matter where you go. The Kenyan diaspora, they are known for drinking.
Yes,
and from the positive side, that Kenyans are known for the party. What I mean,
we know how to have
a good time.
Yeah, we do. And other communities know that about it, and they like to join the party.
But it can be detrimental and destructive when I've seen it be destructive, and actually not even I've seen it, I have experienced it be destructive in my own life as a diasporan. So I fully understand what it is that you're saying, and actually, to be honest, that was a very wise decision to make at that time. Question: you're the head of the this first year. So tell me more about this first year, or is there anything that you feel like sharing about this first year?
No, I mean, the first year was a breeze. I aced every class. I was making friends. I was okay financially. My folks were able to support my upkeep there.
And what about did you get a job in this first year?
Yes, I got a college job. So by law, as a foreign student, I could not get a job outside of the campus. And even if I did get a job, I was limited to how many hours a week I could work. I think it was 20 hours a week, because a full-time job is 40 hours.
Yeah.
And it was generally at minimum wage, which at the time was like $5.15. So I got a job at the school library, which was boring. It was so boring. I mean, how many times can you rearrange books? And but at least it gave me some pocket money, and I could buy some supplies.
So did they give you cash, or did they subsidize your fees through that?
No, they would pay by checks. I would get a check and deposit it.
Okay.
And they were very good with payments. I mean, organized societies, man. They don't muck around with people's pay. And we were paid every 2 weeks.
Aha, nice.
Yeah, which was nice. Whereas before, I was waiting for a monthly salary from my mom for 7K. Yeah. Getting paid every 2 weeks was nice.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, first year was awesome. And then come December, I flew back home.
Oh, you came?
Yeah, I came back home, man. My folks bought me a ticket and I came back home.
So this is December of 1999.
Yeah, I had to usher in the new
millennium.
2000. Expecting computers to crash and planes to fall off of
Y2K, baby.
Yeah, man, it was a big deal. So I was here with the Famo for December holidays. I had met my new girlfriend at the time in campus, Aika. Took me 6 months to ingiza her box.
So you moved on a quick one from Dorothy, eh? What's your right? Well, that one was...
No, it wasn't quick.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was quick.
No.
But I didn't do right by her. I sort of started to move on and I didn't tell her. Whereas I feel like she was still holding on to us. Even though none of us had any idea when we would see each other again. We would talk on the phone. And, in the meantime, I'd met Aika and I liked her. We had a lot in common. She's Tanzanian, but had grown up in Kenya since I think she was high school age. So she was Kenyan-ish.
Went to the same school with Aika.
Yes, shocked me. I learned that later. Yeah, Mababi. I mean, if it wasn't for SCAD, there was no way on this earth that Aika and I would have ever met. Because she grew up on the higher side of the tracks. There was no reason for us to ever cross paths except for SCAD. And at the time I started liking her, I was afraid to tell Dorothy. Eventually I did. I did tell her that I didn't think it was gonna work, and I think it was probably the same thing was happening to her in SA because she met someone else. I think they have a family together now, but I could have acted with better integrity earlier.
Yeah, the reality of long distance not working is sometimes.
No, yeah, man, it's not practical because you're interacting with other people and building bonds and
you're
connections.
also growing.
You're growing apart.
And you yourself are growing into the person you're meant to be, and that doesn't per se mean you.
No, I think that happens ultimately anyway. But if you're not together, you're growing you're growing apart from each other. So you have no point of reference for commonality. You don't know what the aspirations are, the dreams, the frustrations. You can't relate. Much less if you're on separate continents with no clue when you're gonna see each other again. It was an early lesson in relationship management. I would call it, because I was playing both of them at the same time, which I ended up regretting, and I came clean later.
Nice.
Yes.
Hey, so low.
Yeah, so that was my first year.
So okay, no, so I always like hearing about you. I mean, you're lucky that you had the opportunity to return home early. I mean, a year is not it's a long time to be away, but the fact that you've come home, especially the States, many know people who go and have not been back.
Well, we haven't finished the story
Okay.
yet.
Okay, no, but at this time you come back home and
No, I come back home, and that was nice because everyone was traveling back home. You know, Savannah is one of those cities that is dead during school breaks. It's a college town.
I get it.
So when the students leave, it's like there's no life. Like you can feel it. Even the oxygen percentage ratio changes. Yeah? It's like there's more oxygen in the air because there's fewer people breathing it. But
it's like Corona. It's like you feel
exactly. You feel like you're in a lockdown because there's no life. So it was nice to leave and come back home and spend the time with my family and see them after a year. And then of course I went back.
So you go back in January again?
Yeah, left in Jan, and before I could come back, 10 years went by.
Yeah. Okay, now let's.
Yeah.